Hello, everyone, and welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict show. It is so good to be with you guys once again. As I promised you yesterday, that I will do a follow up and an update about what's going on. And this issue is not going anywhere anytime soon, sadly to say. But at the same time, I feel personally this is my responsibility. And knowing what I know, it is my responsibility to share this knowledge with you, at least to the best of my abilities, and let you reach your own conclusions. And as I said last time, it's because you're going to be bombarded with informations from different directions. So just for you to put things in perspective. Well, before I launch into all this, first of all, I want to say thank you all for your support. I want to quickly answer one quick question from our member, Boone, that you asked yesterday when you posted your super sticker. My apologies, I didn't see it at that time because I was just talking and I get wrapped into my own thinking per se. The answer to your question about the central bank in Russia, it has been sanctioned. So just to let you know. So I want to thank you all for this. And I also want to remind you this coming Friday, we're going to be doing live on this topic, just on it from a different perspective, on a different platform. If you can join us on locals, Elizabeth will be joining us, me and Ross also. She's going to provide some insights about some aspects that you need to know about. And this goes beyond geopolitics. For our members, if you happen to be our member watching here, we're going to be doing a special presentation for you on Thursday that goes much deeper into all this of what's going on, the stuff we can't talk about here, of course, but it's a much more deeper analysis. So if you are interested, you can check out our membership at geopoliticsinconflict.com. And for those who might be the first time you are tuning into this channel, please do me a favor and subscribe right now. So your support means a lot to us. Let's jump into it, shall we, guys? First of all, there are about a host of issues that you need to know about. And there are many. I'm going to just lay them out, talk about some, but I'm going to keep one particular topic for tomorrow because I'm waiting on some information. Well, we're going to be talking briefly about the meeting in Belarus that took place today. The also Europeans arming Ukraine, Belarus getting the nukes from Russia. We're talking about immigration. Also, there's the one another key that is very important is where Iran fits into all this. And you might be surprised a little bit. And the last topic, as I said, I'm not going to talk about it today, but I will save it for tomorrow because I'm waiting on some confirmation. This one has to do with U.S. sharing intelligence with China. Yeah, that's surprising, isn't it, guys? So we'll talk about that one tomorrow. Well, let's talk about briefly about the meeting that took place in Belarus. Just because Ukraine agreed to meet with Russia to negotiate and talk about ceasefire, whatever, it does not mean the conflict is over. Oh, by no means. As a matter of fact, Russians are moving now closer to Kiev, the capital. So, and speaking of Kiev, by the way, there are some pictures circulating on the internet and all that stuff. Be careful. Don't fall into the trap right away. Some of those pictures are from a way back. Like, for example, one of the pictures that is circulating, it shows the president of Ukraine wearing a uniform. That's not recent. That was from about a year and a half ago. So it has nothing to do with the reality. So you guys just be careful, sort of in don't assume right away once you see, because the phase where this conflict now, beside the military aspects of it, now it falls into propaganda and information. So it's going to be another war, shall we use the term, but war of information is going to be before. And as I said in the description, just because they are meeting in Belarus, it does not mean the conflict is over. By no means. They are, and this is why I said you have to be careful, is because, for example, how many of you know about what Russia did to allow individuals in Donbass to have access to drinking water? Why? because the supporters of the Ukrainian government went ahead and blocked access to potable water for the Russian majority in the Donbas area. It was the Russian forces that, when they came in, they had to go and sort of help to bring in potable waters to the Donbas area. So, and yet Western media does not talk about it at all. But that's not what we're going to focus about. So, as I said, one thing you need to understand is you have to sort of, as a geopolitical observer or analyst, whatever you want to call it, you always have to see the big picture. And the big picture into this, for example, with the talks in Belarus, once again, it does not mean that the conflict is over. Yeah, Ukraine is hoping, the President Zelensky is hoping for a ceasefire. Well, why is that, you may ask? It's because he's realizing that Europe is not coming to his aid. You will think that somebody advising him will always tell him that. It's a reality. NATO, the West, the UN is not going to send their soldiers to die for Ukraine. It's common sense. Who will do that? And this is why Europe right now decided, the European Union decided to purchase $500 million worth of weapons and send them over to Ukraine. Well, my argument is this. If you truly speak vociferously and loud about this support for Ukraine, right, why don't you send your own troops? Why Germany doesn't send its own troops? Why France? Why not Italy? Even the US, Poland, Hungary, Romania, you name it. Why don't they send in their own troops to Ukraine if they truly want to show support? And this is why you guys need to understand, it is nothing but a hypes. They are not going to die for Ukraine. So what they're going to say, hey, yeah, we'll send you a weapon. But truly, does Ukraine acquiring that weapon have a chance or stand a chance against the Russians? I mean, let's be realistic. And once again, we're not advocating for Russia here. We're not supporting anybody. We're not pushing any agenda whatsoever. We are saying what is pragmatic. As an analyst myself, as a former military, it's common sense. You have to think pragmatically about where things are. Does Ukrainian military, if you call it military, stand a chance against Russia? I mean, pragmatically speaking, no. And this is why it doesn't make any sense for now you're hearing this narrative coming out of London, Brussels, Frankfurt, you name it, about we're going to send weapons to Ukraine. And to do what? The moment those individuals got a weapon in their hands, that's the dead warrant. They'll be, a Russian's not going to be thinking twice about it. It's because now that's it. We passed that kind of stage of, well, let's figure out a way how to solve this issue. They had a chance a couple of days ago. And once again, I'm using history as my guide. If I am to go back to 1991, when President Putin asked Clinton at the time, how about joining NATO? And they kind of shrugged. How about just the last 10 years, when Russia was asking for NATO to halt its expansion eastward? Why does security concerns for Russia were ignored? And once again, we're talking pragmatically here. We're talking what is logical. And that leaves the Russians no choice but to act. Yeah, this might sound very odd and weird the way they did. Well, once again, go back to history. What did the Russians do when the United States invaded Iraq? See, it's kind of what works for us should not work for other, or what applies to us should not be applied to other. Well, that's what I call a double standard. If we are to say, well, you're going to be fair, we'll be fair with everybody, not just be cherry picking here and there. And this is why Russia decided now to go ahead and armed Belarus with a nuclear weapon. You all know what it means. It's because Russia does not trust NATO. Russia does not trust the West. Russia does not trust the United States. Same what the West says about not trusting Russia. It's a mutual distrust between the two. So Russia's move by arming Belarus with a nuclear weapon is to create a buffer zone from the north. That is the objective. And this is why personally I'm leaning towards the possibility that Ukraine could be split up. Usually it might be better. Why? It's because the half of the Ukraine that is on the east side will be part of Russia, and this way the rest of Ukraine on the west side doesn't have to worry about it. But it might be. I'm just saying there is a possibility to that. And this is why also today President Zelensky signed a document asking, almost begging, for the EU to accept Ukraine as a member. It's to me, if Europeans wanted to do that, they would have done it after Crimea was annexed. So, and I don't see Europeans now. If I am to be a flying over and watch Europeans right now, I bet you they are taking a step back and opening their eyes very wide and saying to themselves, "What have we get ourselves into?" Of course, Western media is not going to disclose that. You're not going to hear it because that will be like problematic for the narrative that's supposed to be. And this is what explains, for example, the circulation of some photos that or pictures that were from years back, depicting like it's today, and it's not. I had a chance to watch a recording yesterday that wasn't from here. It was from an Eastern European country. I'm not going to disclose the country. I have my reasons for not doing that. No. And the individual who was on the ground in Kiev, okay, what I noticed behind him, everything was normal. People were walking around. Cars were in their place. I didn't see any destruction on the buildings and so forth. And yes, some of the images, and I'm not saying all, some of the images are depicting a different reality. And that is why I said what I said at the beginning. Be very careful about how to absorb the information. Okay? I'm here to share the understanding with you, provide you that clear picture. But I am not here to reach a conclusion for you. You're smart enough and you can reach that yourself. And the information that I'm sharing with you is to the best of my knowledge and ability. Because I searched that information before I came on the air to talk to you about. So that is one of the issues. So when we think about Europeans now going forward with a $500 million worth of weapons, the United States already fast-tracked legislation about 3 weeks ago for $500 million. So here is $1 billion going to Ukraine. Where is that money going? I'll let you reach your own conclusion. Okay. Then there is another issue that is usually, and I looked at from a different angles and at different sources to see who's reporting on what, and and even if the reporting was with an accuracy or not. Well, here is the issue. The issue has to do with immigration. You're hearing now that about 300,000, almost 1 million people are leaving, Ukrainians leaving Ukraine, going to Eastern Europe. The estimation now saying 5. The last place I checked, it was about 7 million people possibly could be leaving Ukraine. Where are they going to go? You're going to go to Russia? No, of course. Where are they going to go? Majority of them now wants to go Poland. Well, Poland has a policy about immigration. You remember the tensions Poland and Hungary had with the European Union because they are a member, and they had with the European Union regarding immigration? Is Germany willing to admit 5 million Ukrainians? Is England willing to admit 5 million or 7 million immigrants? What's going to happen to those immigrants? Because that's going to be a catastrophe for Europe. One of the things they have not thought through. And that's going to create, because it's going to put pressure on the social programs within Europe. Europeans are already now, and I am kind of wondering if people in Europe, the Europeans themselves, are questioning what their governments are doing. It's no different than what we have here in the US. Are the American people waking up enough to ask and wonder, where are we going with this? Where are we heading it? And who's going to end up being impacted? The so-called elites not going to worry about this. Do they worry about oil prices? The prices at the gas pump are up? No, they're not going to care about that. But an average Joe or average Jane will, because that average Joe or average Jane is already struggling to find out whether he or she is going to have dinner tonight or not. Then you, the government, taking $500 million and sending it to some far land for support of some democracy or some whatever issue that is, when we have our own problems here, makes you just wonder, where is the logic? Where is the pragmatism into this? And what happened to those decision makers, so-called leaders? Do they truly thought this through? So immigration, as simple as it might be, it will be very complicated for Europeans now to truly handle that issue, because that's very, very, very complicated. Then there is another issue. And this issue has to do with Iran. Well, some of you might say, okay, what this Iran has to do with all this? Once again, if you are to put your geopolitical analyst hat on, you're going to be thinking from those perspectives, from that angle, into why certain other players who might be all the way far away from the conflict might end up playing a role into that. In a simple language here, and I'm going to break it down for you guys to understand. In a simple language, when it comes down to Iran, you're going to have to think about it in terms of energy. Because here's the thing. The sanctions, as I said last time, and I did explain this to you guys, that the West and the United States decided not to sanction the energy aspects of it, certain aspects of it, but mainly for the gas. Why? Because that just didn't make any sense. Okay? But here is the question. As one of our viewers did ask that question, and I give him credit, because it was his question, not mine. It was his. It was just very brilliant to say. What if Russia decided to cut off the exporting gas altogether to Europe? That's a brilliant question, which makes perfect sense. Russia already mentioned they are not going to sort of stop sending gas. Yes, the Europeans and the Americans impose sanctions and so forth, but that's not going to prevent them from maintaining what they need to do. The issue with Iran, to understand where Iran comes into all this, and this one has to do, of course, Iran and Russia, they have some sort of, what would you consider in them? Tactical allies, shall we say, because they are tactical allies in the conflict in Syria. And usually when you think about the interest of Iran and the interest of Russia, they do intersect, especially when it comes down to the US, to the Middle East, rather. But at the same time, now you're dealing with a much global issue, and especially with energy at the heart of it. Well, here is where Iran comes in. Okay, there is an Iranian company, okay, called Khazar Exploration and Production Corporation. It's called KIPOC. Okay. It's announced, as a matter of fact, not recently, but about a few months ago, it announced the discovery of a natural gas field, one of the largest in the country. And that one is from the Caspian Sea, or near the Caspian Sea area. It's called the Shalos, Shalos field. The bottom line to that is that field, it can provide Europe with about 20% of natural gas. Because remember, one thing in international relations matters is national interests. Yes, they can be ally. Yes, they can work on whatever. Yes, they can whatever. But still, interest matters at the end. So, on the other hand, you take also the position of China. China has condemned the sanctions on Russia. Okay? But also China expressed its willingness to come to the aid of Russia by providing the market. So you can just see, because those are normal dynamics in international relations. So when it comes down to both Iran and China, regarding Iran, this has to do with the nuclear talks, because it's to the benefit that Russia supports and Iran reciprocates. When it comes down to China, it makes perfect sense for China to show its support, because time might come for China to need the support of Russia regarding the Taiwan issue. It's a strategic move, and there is nothing sort of wrong about it. Most leaders who think strategically will think in these terms. And that's why I'm not surprised at the position of China, and I'm not surprised at the statements of Iran regarding the energy. So it becomes just the question of whether Iran will be able to supply the entire Europe for that. What, 20% might not be enough. Because remember, Russia by itself provides about 40% of Europe's energy needs when it comes down to the gas. So that's one aspect. Then there is a player that comes into the picture. And that player is none other than NATO member, Turkey. Once again, you might ask, okay, what is Turkey has to do with all this? It's because Ukraine asked the Turkish government to block or to close two waterways that have access to the Black Sea. The two waterways are the Bosphorus and Dardanelles waterways. Of course, Turkey said no. You get to be out of your mind to do that. Not the kind of we're rude about it. It's just because there are some legality to all that. Of course, Turkey has complete sovereignty over those two straits. Okay, yet it is partly to a legal binding by treaty, international one that is. It's called the Montreux Convention that regulates its decision to deny access to the crucial waterways. So I just don't see how Ukraine was thinking that, oh, the West is going to come to our aid quickly. That just wasn't going to happen. It's just the way it works. They miscalculated. First, they were thinking, oh, we can just go in and challenge Russia and Europe will come to our aid. And once again, you will think they will learn from what happened in Georgia, because Georgia's scenario is the same as in Ukraine. They were the majority Russian speaking population in the areas of South Ossetia and Abkhazia. Okay? And Georgia government were kind of shelling those, the same thing that Ukraine did on the Donbass. So Russia ended up sending the troops. Within 5 days, they took over, and it was over for Saakashvili, the former president, because he miscalculated also, thinking that the first time the first shot is fired, Europe is going to come to his aid on NATO. So you will think, Zelensky will think. History has a purpose for it. We just tend not to be readers of history unless we are playing dumb and want to ignore that altogether. And that is one of the reasons why the meeting today in Belarus, it does not mean the conflict is over. Yes, they might negotiate here and there, but Russia is still moving forward because, pardon me, here is the thing. To Russia, this is make or break. If they don't act today, they won't have another opportunity to do so. I mean, what do we expect in the West? You keep expanding eastward to Russia's doorstep, and you don't expect them to react? Any sensible leader is going to have to think about the security of his or her country. As I said, emotions are on high, and you're going to hear different narratives emanating from the West. And once again, guys, I am not here to advocate for anybody here. I am here for what is pragmatic, what is logical, what is realistic. And to me personally, with the placements of the nuclear deterrence on a high alert, that gives me enough to start to think about the next day. Will they go for it? Not necessarily. But if they are cornered, yes, they will. Let's not sugarcoat it and pretend that is not such. Because this is not about bluffing. Of course, the narrative you're hearing on the West right now is that Russia is playing the nuclear card. That is the narrative. So that's been propagated right now. So that is one of the key issues that it's going to be happening now. So the question now that we all need to ask is, will Europe be able to absorb all the immigrants? Okay, that's one. And second question is, what will Europe do moving forward? Because apparently, and this is again my personal opinion, by the time Germany decided to send weapons to Ukraine, by the time European Union made the decision, which it's not them who made the decision, they've been forced to make a decision, or I shall say it the way it is, the decision was made for them to purchase $500 million of weapons. And by the way, guys, did you wonder where they're going to purchase the weapons from? I'll let you answer that yourself. So you can put the picture together and you come to your own conclusion. So to me personally, by the time these actions taking place, it tells me now who manages Europe. And that is why I wanted to ask you that question. You can think up, you can post an answer to it if you like, whatever. I'll take a look at it when I have time. And because that is a legitimate question to ask. What will Europe do moving forward? Because here's the thing that you need to truly understand. Whatever way this goes in Ukraine, things will never go back to yesterday. We are entering a different landscape now. Landscape in which, personally, I will categorize it this way: a geopolitical poker table with three main players, the US, Russia, and China. Okay, two of them are trying to kick one out. We all know who that player is, and that changes the dynamics forever. There are those who say, no. The world is still unipolar. No, it's not. Because this exactly proves my case. It is not unipolar anymore. Things have changed. And as I said last time, the other key question has to do with Taiwan. Because Taiwan is the next step. Mark my word on it. It will be a different game altogether in Asia. Very different than Europe. And tomorrow, the other topic that I am waiting on certain confirmation of certain information has to do, as I said at the beginning, for the share of intelligence that the United States did with China. Was it a very smart thing to do? Or was it stupid? No. or does it reflect the history back in 1970? If you want to find out, make sure you stay tuned, because I'm going to come back on this tomorrow or after tomorrow, and I'm going to provide you an explanation as to what it means. I'm just, as I said earlier, I'm trying to confirm some information before I come on the air. So, all right, guys, I'm going to have to go because I have to go do a presentation for our members on locals, because I promised them to do. I wanted to do this for you as well. So it's kind of, I can only be in so many places, that's just the way it works. So in any event, make sure you guys join me and Russ and Elizabeth on Friday for a live stream on locals. I will post something for you guys on Wednesday or Thursday just to keep you informed about it. And for our members, once again, we will be doing the presentation for you on Thursday at 1100 hours. So I take this opportunity to thank you all on behalf of the Geopolitics in Conflict team. We want to say thank you so much for your support. And as always, guys, stay informed. Till next time. Bye-bye.